All right, let's talk about day 17 of the Russian invasion. Um, a little tough to tell exactly what's going on because there's so much propaganda and there's so much spin on both sides. I'm following pro-Russian Telegram accounts that were banned off of Twitter. Um, I'm following just like regular American news media, including like the tabloid stuff, Daily Mail, both spinning it one way or another. But from what I can tell, Russia is still advancing, even though it had a high casualty rate. Yes, supply chain issues and all sorts of hiccups and traffic jams of tanks and stuff like that, and they get ambushed. Yes, yes. Bunch of embarrassing shit on the Russia's part. Yet they're still pressing forward, and now that long convoy has disappeared into the forests where they're basically surrounding Kiev. Kiev ain't gonna bomb the shit out of it. As far as well, Putin's fired 8 general, like how many of his main generals were assassinated or basically killed by a sniper round. He fired other ones. So invasion definitely not going as smooth as he planned. However, even with America and NATO flooding the country with Javelin missiles and all sorts of Western missiles, looks like, especially if Belarus gets in there, looks like Putin is going to win this tug of war as far as just being able to encircle cities, inflict so much damage, cut off power, cut off water, make it so unbearable that Ukraine is probably going to have to cry uncle and surrender. Um, which I've been calling from day one that Ukraine should just probably surrender. Not because that but I'm a Putin supporter or anything like that, but I just want to see is the least amount of people perish for things that, in the long scheme of history, things are going to be the same anyway. Just like the lesson I did, I made a trip to Vietnam for vacation, and I went to like a museum, and you can see all the bombs. Um, you can see all the bombs that were dropped on Vietnam by the Americans, and after all this dying, after all this suffering, Vietnam is going to be Vietnam anyway. So I'm pretty sure even if Putin invades and installs some puppet or whatever, but then if the Ukrainian people already got a taste of Western civilization or they're Western now, their government is going to be slowly moving west. It's going to be divided from Russia anyway. Now they don't need to make the mistake of uh, antagonizing Russia as far as like doing training, military training with NATO and this, and try to ask for NATO's membership. Just they could play it smart, they can play it diplomatically, and they can have a thriving economy in a great country. Um, Now, of course, what what they really want to do, or I'm saying America, because America looks like America's fighting a war, but now it's the opposite side. America was fighting 20 years in Afghanistan, and they were the occupying force, and they had to leave with their tail behind their, in between their legs. And now America's having a lot of fun by being the guerrilla, doing the guerrilla warfare, especially if no Americans are getting killed. They can do like satellite reconnaissance for them. They can do all sorts of like advising. They can send in weapons. So they're having fun, and they're not going to get any blowback for Americans getting killed. So they're the guerrillas now. But at the same time, that's at the cost of the Ukrainians. I mean, they're like spending, not only wasting U.S. taxpayer dollars, but if they just Putin, I mean, the Ukraine is kind of like a small puppet here. That's that's basically at a collision course or in between two big powers, Russia and America, and just the West in general. I would say that it's like, why would you want to be in between a rock and a hard place? I mean, Ukraine should just be smarter than that and avoid that. Just play it diplomatically, play it neutrally, and save a whole bunch of, just save a whole bunch of lives. At this point, as far as Putin, he too many soldiers have been killed now. His country is sanctioned. Like, I'm reading Western media, and they're talking about, oh, he should have exit ramps. He should have exit ramps. But his country is so sanctioned now, so devastated. The economy, the prices are, like, what's happening to America's oil prices. There's like double, triple what's happened to all prices in Russia. Economy is imploding. So if the country is going to bear such a big cost for war, for this invasion, then Putin is going to have to take his pound of. He's going to have to, in order for him to stay in power, he's gonna demand. He's gonna, like, we're fucking gonna annex Ukraine. I mean, some major things. We're gonna take half of Ukraine, or like, we're gonna. I mean, I don't even see. I don't see any major victories here for him, but I mean, I guess if he was able to somehow install a Russian-friendly government, and that government was not to be toppled, like, immediately, then that would bolster him on the world stage, make Europe a little bit more based, as for it's like push the West back some, for a better term, extend Eastern influence. But yeah, it's like, I think sanctioning him so hard put him in a corner to where I'm sure if they didn't do all these crazy sanctions, then they could have struck a peace deal where, okay, whatever, the Ukraine's not going to join NATO, that's fine, and the Russian forces just leave or something, But now at this point, there's what on off ramp does he have? I don't see America losing face, or the EU or whatever losing face, and removing some of the sanctions in order for this peace deal. Highly doubt it. Those sanctions come on forever, and there's have to be complete regime change for those things to come off. So, but now here's the Guardian telling us the developments. Satellite images show Russian forces are getting closer to Kiev and appear to be firing artillery towards residential areas. Reuters reported. Zelensky accuses Russia of hiring murderers from Syria after the Kremlin ramped up efforts to bring in reinforcements from the Middle East. Yeah, I would say Syria, Bashar al-Assad, the dictator from Syria, he really owes him one. I mean, he was about to be overrun completely until Putin stepped in. Well, now he's calling on a favor, promising $3,000 a month. Oof. A sum up to 50 times a Syrian soldier's monthly salary. I would not go and fight for 3,000 and have like 1 in 10 chance of getting killed for $3,000 a month. But if it's 50 times my salary, I still wouldn't do it. But that's just me. I'm in a lucky position. The UN Secretary Council met on Friday to discuss Moscow claims that U.S. is funding military biological activities in Ukraine. Is that true? They did discover some biological stuff, or biological laboratories. I'm not going to go down the propaganda or fact-checking rabbit hole, try to find what validity there is to it. But I mean, it could be the Putin's of weapons of mass destruction. You know how the Americans were looking for those. U.S. has warned the possibility of chemical, biological weapons being used by Russia. This is they're trying to drum up as much hysteria as possible. There's no way Putin is using biological weapons when he can use regular weapons and just pummel Ukraine, the city, completely into the ground. Why would he why would he draw even more ire to? I mean, he doesn't need him to defeat Ukraine at this point. Russian airstrikes hit 3 cities in Ukraine Friday, including 2 in the country's west, as the scope of his military offensive widened. So basically, it's not. They don't want to say like, "Oh, try Russia's making big gains and this and that." They're just trying to say it. They have to report the facts, so they're not. Because if it was the opposite, they're like, "The Russians are retreating. This is so embarrassing. Look at all these tanks are blowing up. Look, whatever. Look at there's a farmer. He's driving a $200 million Russian tank. God, this is so embarrassing. Whatever." But no. When they are very sober, saying Russian airstrikes, including 2 as the scope of the military offensive is widening, spreading. That means keywords. Yeah, the Russia's taking shit over. Hundreds of thousands of civilians remain trapped under fire in Ukrainian cities, but the situation in Mariupol is especially dire. This is especially that sucks. I mean, I hate to see this. If anything, I'd love for all the citizens, just the bystanders, civilians, just to be able to clear out. But the people that actually wanted to fight Russia, wanted to show a point to Putin, or wanted to whatever, show off. Yeah, I would wish just for them just to be left. Like the Ukrainian military, the ones that want to stay there, Zelensky, the government, and people who just want to go get into a war. You know what I mean? They're just looking for a war, looking for blood, looking for carnage. I wish they could just stay there and then they can duke it out. Ukraine fears Belarus might launch an invasion of Ukraine on Saturday after meeting in Moscow between Russian President Vladimir Putin and Belarusian counterpart Alexander Lukashenko. Ukraine accused Russia of firing at a Belarusian settlement near border from Ukraine airspace in an attempt to drag Belarus into the war. Is this a red flag attack? A third Russian major general has been killed in Ukraine, Western officials confirmed. Western intelligence estimate that about 20 major generals would have been committed to the invasion, implying a relatively high casualty rate. Western governments announced plans to impose punitive tariffs on Russian trade to further isolate Moscow from the global economy. The G7 group of wealthy nations said it would strip Russia of, quote, most favored nation. This is so funny. Most favored nation. Fucking Russia doesn't, with like diamonds and vodka. God, I mean, aside from energy, it doesn't really export much. Although I was surprised to learn it does have more exports than imports, which is, wow, better than the U.S. I mean, I'm sure that's gone out the window now, but Biden announced plans to ban imports of seafood, vodka, and diamonds from Russia in retaliation for Putin's war on Ukraine. Russia has moved to block Instagram after its parent company Meta said it would allow calls for violence against Putin and Russian soldiers. Ouch. I mean, I understand the anger and stuff like that, but you're getting, I mean, they're probably going to regret this. It's, I mean, censoring people for misinformation, that's bad enough, but could you imagine you actually have to decide who you can advocate for violence against, Is it possible to advocate violence against Americans for the invasion of Iraq or Libya or something? It's like what the hell? It's like, why can't they be a neutral platform? Why can't just stay out of it? Just denounce all violence. Or allow all violence posts or whatever. Deutsche Bank and Sony Pictures have joined exodus of Western business from Russia. Yeah, I think Russia's going to be a pirate heaven. Like, even though, like, I hear now there isn't that much piracy is not so much endorsed in China now because the Chinese have their own personal. They started to make their own movies, music, and they want to protect their own intellectual property. But if Russia's completely cut off, oh my God, like, You'd have like a Netflix in Russia you could just log into, but everything's free, every single movie possible, imagined, or show. That would really hurt. I mean, I'm sure this is going to hurt the studios more than, more than to send a message to Putin. U.S. has accused Russia of violating nuclear safety principles. I guess that's having to do with the bombing around the nuclear plant. Western intelligence agencies are investigating a cyber attack by unidentified hackers. The attack disrupted broadband satellite internet access in Ukraine, coinciding with Russia's invasion. Ukraine accused Russia of violating international law by abducting the mayor of Metropole, a Ukrainian city that fell under Russia's control during the invasion. So there you go, day 17. The only thing I'm going to make a prediction with heavy losses, unfortunately, and lots of civilians dying. Russia is actually going to take over and be able to bomb Ukraine into submission. Now, what type of, since Russia's sanctioned to hell now, I don't think that that's like lifting sanctions and normalizing trade. I don't think that would be part of the peace deal, because Ukraine could just cry uncle and surrender. Is Russia going to keep on bombing until they say like, hey, America needs to lift the sanctions? Or I don't think the sanctions are not going to be a bargaining chip until Putin steps down or he's overthrown or whatever. So at this point, Russia has endured. Ukraine obviously is endured a lot, but Russia's economy is so crippled now. Putin's whole presidency. I guess he can fail, and just like in Afghanistan, it would take a couple years for his government to crumble. His ass is on the line here, so he needs to win some big concessions from Ukraine.